Okay, so get this. We're going to deep dive into this YouTube video,
Yeah.
and it's about gender and violence and media attention in Jamaica.
Oh, wow.
And it's a conversation between two Jamaican influencers,
Okay.
Tom Travel and Jay, and it is intense.
Oh, I can imagine.
It's on a channel called Toxic Talk,
Mm-hmm.
and the irony is not lost on me
Right.
because they are arguing about whether or not just saying stop the violence is enough
Hmm.
when there's been so much violence against women and children lately.
Yeah, that's something that comes up a lot.
In Jamaica right now especially.
Yeah.
So Jay initially posted a video saying stop the violence.
Okay.
And he got a lot of backlash for not specifically mentioning women and children.
Yeah.
And he feels like violence against men is being ignored. And he even brings up the deaths of police officers as an example.
Yeah, there is, when you think about violence, I mean, it's all terrible, obviously.
Of course.
But there is a sense that sometimes men are, told to suck it up or,
Right.
just deal with it. Yeah.
Be a man.
Yeah, be a man. And,
Right.
and it makes it harder to talk about it.
Yeah, and Tunt acknowledges that all violence is serious.
Okay.
But she really emphasizes that the current outrage is about gender-based violence.
Okay.
And she uses the domestic violence statistics in Jamaica to argue that, we really need to focus on violence against women.
To reduce violence overall.
Right. And she defines gender-based violence as violence directed against a person because of his gender or violence that affects persons of a particular gender disproportionately.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes on to say that it does not have to be I killed this woman because she is a woman. It can quite literally be the fact that Jamaican women are seen as sexual objects and so we are abused more.
That's really interesting.
So, it gets you thinking, is there a hierarchy of outrage where some victims are more, worthy of sympathy than others?
Oh, absolutely.
And Jay even cites statistics that more men are murdered in Jamaica than women and children. And he asks, why isn't there an equal outcry?
Yeah, it's a good question.
It is. And Ton acknowledges these statistics.
Okay.
But she says you can't compare the reactions because the contexts of these deaths are so different.
So she's saying that there's a reason why people are more outraged when it's a woman or a child.
Yeah, like violence against men, especially men who are involved in gangs, is just seen as more normal.
Yeah, and that's a problem.
It is. It's like we've become desensitized to male suffering.
Right, and it allows these cycles of violence to continue.
Especially when men are told to be, these hyper-masculine, strong, silent types.
Exactly.
And then there's this whole other thing that comes up.
Yeah.
The role of expectations and gender roles in relationships.
Oh, boy.
And Ton says that in Jamaica, men receive more love and respect than women.
That's, I bet Jay had something to say about that.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
He was not happy about that statement.
I can imagine.
And he even brings up suicide rates among men as evidence that men face real struggles too.
Of course.
And then they have this back and forth about Father's Day gifts and this expectation that men have to be providers.
I mean, that is a real thing, isn't it?
It is.
That pressure on men to provide, to be the breadwinner.
Right.
It's a lot of pressure.
And Jay says that the least men need to worry about is being loved because you guys are already ahead of women, ahead of children in every other aspect of life.
So he's basically saying that expectation of men to be providers actually puts them at a disadvantage emotionally.
Right. And Tan counters with her own experience, saying that men are often just interested in her for sex, not for her intelligence or anything else.
Right.
And she says that I think what they're trying to say is men will claim that they love women, but you guys only love the pleasure that you can gain or what you gain from women. You aren't returning the respect that's necessary for you to love women.
So it's like they're talking about two different types of love or two different ways of expressing love.
And it makes you wonder, are these traditional gender roles, even if they seem to benefit one gender over the other, are they ultimately harmful to everyone?
That's a really interesting question.
It is.
And it's something that I think we need to be talking more about.
Yeah, absolutely.
As society.
And then right in the middle of all of this, the accusation of pick-me politics comes up.
Oh, wow. So Jay is being accused of being a pick-me.
Yeah, for trying to shift attention away from women's issues.
Yeah.
And towards men's struggles.
It's tricky because on one hand, he is advocating for a more inclusive approach to violence.
Right.
Acknowledging that men can be victims too.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it could be seen as minimizing what women go through.
Right.
So it's a tough balance.
It is. And Ton says that women are more vocal about violence against them because they feel unsafe.
Of course.
And they don't have as many options for recourse.
And if men aren't reporting abuse, you have to wonder if it's because of these expectations around masculinity.
Right, like this idea that men can't show weakness.
Exactly.
So we're talking about these deep-seated cultural norms that impact how we perceive violence.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to gender.
And it's not just about individual experiences, but about the systems that shape those experiences.
Yeah, and that's what makes this conversation so important.
Absolutely.
Because it's not just about Jamaica.
Right.
It's about how we as a society address these really complex issues of gender power and violence.
It's a conversation that needs to be happening everywhere.
Everywhere.
And, you know, in societies where men have more power, it's not surprising that women might feel less safe.
Right.
And have fewer options when it comes to reporting abuse or seeking justice.
Yeah, it makes you realize that this isn't just like some theoretical debate. It's about real people trying to navigate these complex systems.
Absolutely.
And make their voices heard. So both Ton and Jay, even though they have different approaches, they're both calling for action.
Okay.
Ton believes that we need to focus on specific types of violence, like gender-based violence, to address the root causes.
Okay.
But Jay advocates for a broader stop the violence message. That includes everyone.
Right. So it's like two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
Do you target specific forms of violence or do you take a more general approach?
Right.
And there's no easy answer.
No.
It's probably a combination of both.
Right, because, I mean, we need to address the specific ways that different groups are impacted by violence. But we also need to understand that violence is never okay.
Right.
No matter who the victim is.
Absolutely.
And Jay makes this point about how crime in Jamaica has basically desensitized people to violence.
Yeah, it's become so commonplace that it's almost seen as normal.
And that's scary.
It is, and it makes this conversation even more urgent.
Yeah.
Because when violence is just accepted as a part of life,
it's hard to fight.
It's really hard to combat.
Right.
You need a huge shift in mindset for people to realize that it's not okay.
And then they bring up another layer to this, which is how we even talk about these issues online.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And they both express frustration with the tone of online discourse, especially on Twitter, where it's just so aggressive and unproductive.
Oh, yeah. It's hard to have a nuanced conversation on Twitter.
It is. And Tan even says that responding to negative comments just gives those comments more visibility.
Oh, that's so true.
Even if you're trying to correct misinformation or defend yourself.
It's like you're feeding the trolls.
Oh, right.
You're giving them exactly what they want.
And Ton talks about this idea of trauma response, where you're just constantly being bombarded with negativity.
Right.
And it makes you defensive.
Yeah, even if you want to have a productive conversation.
Right. It's like a self-preservation mechanism.
Right. Exactly. And it just highlights the need for more empathy online.
You know?
It's so easy to forget that there are real people behind those screens.
And I think it's the anonymity of the internet that makes people say things that they would never say in person.
I think it's more of a lack of accountability.
Yeah.
You know, people feel like they can get away with saying anything online.
Because there are no consequences.
Right.
So how do we create a more constructive online space?
That's the question, isn't it?
It is.
I don't think there's an easy answer.
No.
But I think it starts with recognizing that we all have a responsibility to be more mindful of how we engage online.
Like we need to listen more?
Yeah.
Consider different perspectives and challenge our own biases?
It's not about winning an argument.
Right.
It's about understanding each other.
Even if we don't agree.
Exactly.
And that takes humility.
Yeah.
Being able to admit when you're wrong, apologize when you've hurt someone, and learn from your mistakes.
It's about creating a culture of respect.
Yeah.
Even when you disagree.
And that's something that we're really missing online.
Yeah. It's definitely a work in progress.
It is.
But I think it's a goal worth striving for.
Absolutely.
And it brings us back to that core question.
Yeah.
How do we address violence while acknowledging the challenges that different groups face?
And we have to hold multiple truths at the same time.
Right.
Like we can acknowledge men's pain and suffering, but also recognize that women are disproportionately impacted by violence.
And we can advocate for solutions that address both the systemic inequalities and the individual needs.
It's not about choosing sides.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we're all in this together.
Exactly.
And we need to work together.
To create a safer world for everyone.
Yeah. This has been so thought-provoking.
It has.
And it's not just about Jamaica.
Right.
These are conversations that are happening everywhere.
All over the world. These are universal questions.
About gender power and violence.
And how we create a more just society.
So what can our listeners take away from this?
I think the biggest takeaway is the importance of listening to each other's experiences.
Even when they're different from our own.
Even when they're different from our own.
We have to get out of our echo chambers.
Right.
And engage with different perspectives.
And recognize that even when we disagree, there's common ground to be found.
We might not agree on the solutions.
Right.
But we can at least acknowledge our shared humanity.
I love that shared humanity.
Yeah.
That's a great place to start.
I feel like we've barely scratched the surface here.
Yeah, these deep dives always make you think.
And they really make you question everything you thought you knew.
Yeah.
So we talked about this tension between stopping all violence and focusing on specific types of violence.
Like gender-based violence?
Yeah.
Right.
We talked about societal expectations and gender roles, and even how we talk about these issues online.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is.
And I think the big takeaway is that we can't oversimplify these issues.
Yay.
There's no easy fix.
No magic solution. So we need a multi-pronged approach that looks at the systemic issues and the individual needs.
We need to invest in social programs, address poverty and inequality. We need to challenge gender norms and create spaces for men to be vulnerable. And we have to hold perpetrators accountable.
No matter who they are.
No matter who they are.
It sounds daunting.
It does.
But it's also inspiring.
Yeah, to think that we can actually make a difference.
We can.
We can.
But it starts with each of us taking responsibility
for our own actions.
Right, and challenging those stereotypes and behaviors in our own lives.
Absolutely.
Speaking up when we see injustice.
Yeah.
Even when it's hard.
Even when it's hard.
And educating ourselves and others
about the root causes of violence.
And supporting those who are already doing this work.
Yes.
And it's not always about the big things.
Right.
Sometimes it's the small things.
The everyday interactions.
Exactly.
The conversations we have.
With our friends and family.
Yeah.
It's about creating a culture of respect in our own communities.
It's about recognizing that we all have a role to play. In creating a safer world.
This has been such a powerful reminder that we're not alone in this.
We're not.
And there are so many people
all over the world
fighting for a better future.
Yeah.
So to our listener, if you're feeling overwhelmed, just focus on one small thing you can do today.
One small thing.
Maybe it's having a conversation with a friend. Maybe it's donating to an organization.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just being more mindful online.
Right. Every little bit helps.
It does. It creates a ripple effect.
That can lead to real change.
We're not alone in this.
We're not.
There are people all over the world fighting for justice and equality.
And together,
we can create a future where violence is not the norm.
It's the exception.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been an honor to explore these issues with you.
And to our listener, thank you for sharing this video with us and for being a part of this conversation.
Keep asking questions.
Deep challenging assumptions.
And keep fighting for a better tomorrow.
We'll see you next time.